Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. Hello, man. Hello, Mgtow. That would be my sound check. Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. Go your own way, man. Go your own way. All your sins are forgiven from the past. In Mgtow. All your Simpsons, at least. I don't know about the rest of those things. I don't care about the rest of those things. Today we're going to talk about a life worth living. And right away you're going to like, what is a life worth? What represents a life worth living? And I suppose happiness would be a part of a life worth living, and something like that. A long time ago, I'll just read the what I put in the low bar. There was a burning question in my mind about male suicide, and I pondered the question and struggle with it. I really struggle with the realization of why men commit suicide at great death. And I read everything I could about it, and really that didn't provide any answers. Most of the time the journey came to personal questions within myself, and the answers for male suicide didn't really represent, it didn't really work, because everything was focused on the person. It was focused from one party to another. So I had to ask myself some questions, and I had to do some considerable reading on this topic. And I took a deep look into a few philosophers lately that talk about male suicide. One was Durkheim, one was Camus. Camus. Drives me nuts. But after all that, it really didn't give me no answers on why men do this a lot. And it just comes, sometimes we overthink these things. Life is more difficult and more complex than we think. And the reason the question hasn't been answered, I guess, is because the question really doesn't the question really doesn't cover what really makes men happy. And the philosophical question, it's how do you prevent despair and apathy to the point of you want to negate your very existence on this planet? The answer to this is really surprisingly easy. If you don't want to have men commit male suicide, and apathy and despair is what causes these things and make life worth living. And that's easy. What is the measures of happiness? What are the things that we can measure happiness and everything? What is it that men are told about what's going to make them happy? What are men told about what's going to make them happy in life? And what does make you happy? Really, what does make the individual man happy? And I don't think what's told to them in society and what really kind of makes us happy. What makes me happy? And I have to think about that. Lack of stress makes me happy. Just being normal makes me happy. Not to be overburdened makes me happy. I think most men would agree. A fishing vacation in Florida would make me happy too. But with that, there would become a lot of stress and a lot of travel and all that. And most Mgtows just walking down to the local river or the local stream and going fishing, that really makes me happy. But that entails peace and quiet and serenity. So in my life, and I know I may be a little bit different, serenity makes me happy. Solitude makes me happy. Lack of stress makes me happy. And that just makes sense. But when I look at some of the studies out there, it's also confusing about male happiness. And when I look at one of the major studies that came out, one of the major studies by psychologists, Psychology Today quotes them on male happiness. I think what we're told about male happiness is pretty much bullshit. What makes you happy, and it's what we buy into. It's what we're trained to do. And there was a massive study. They say massive study, but it was 5,000 men. And this massive study, the first study, and you'll get this one quite often if you type in male happiness now. And what they say is male happiness is they gauge it on questions that they ask, health and positive. Health and positivity and of their lives, including these 6 things that they thought makes career, work-life balance, relationships, money, physical and mental health. Now I know physical health and mental health. Mental health is not a prerequisite. My mouth is not working right now. To happiness, because if your mental health, if mental health is compromised, that's a lack of happiness or a lack of joy or a lack of function. So I think we can put that one on. Physicality is okay if you can walk, if you can run, if you can play like a child, throw a baseball or anything like that. Yeah, that makes me happy. Going bowling makes me happy. Money, but there's relationships in there. And they say in this study, there were 2 big takeaways in a whole survey, which was conducted in last September. And this is where it started making me think about things. First, the good news, most American men, and I'll get to that, American men are pretty happy, and the characteristics of and the characteristics most valued. And then when they gave the reasons, and what they were reasoning out is it was most respect and admired and quiet positivity, honesty, reliability, dependability, being respect of others, and loyalty. And that's what makes us men happy. That's what this study did. Surprisingly, one thing in life that makes most men happy is health. And we often hear this, going to the gym makes me happy. Riding my bikes makes me happy. Going fishing is another sport. You have to go walking. You have to trudge through the woods or do things. So it's a sport, golfing and stuff like that. So that all relates to men's health. It's always healthy to get outside and do some walking, climb down or walk to the lake and do that. So surprisingly, that doesn't surprise me. But do men get this? Now look at the 5 things. Career inhibits that. Work-life balance inhibits that thing that makes men the most happiest. Relationships inhibits that thing. Money does not really matter in there. Physicality could inhibit that thing, and mental health would inhibit that thing. That makes us the most happy, getting out, being healthy. What is being healthy? Being healthy is going out and doing things. Healthy aspect of life would be sports or riding your bike. Like I said, all those things in healthy aspect. But then I looked at, I needed to look at this further. And I went to the, I'll put this up for you and see if I can share online. Let's see if I can share this online because last time I wasn't able to share, and let's see if they allowed me to screen share this time. And let me see, share. Nope, they're not going to screen share. Chrome wants to share content with your screen. Choose what you would like to do as share. Well, they're not going to let me screen share anymore. Huh. Well. That's new on me, and why I can't screen share is that's weird. Oh, they want me to click on what contents I want to start sharing. There I go. That was weird. Now I can go to the next page, and we'll go to Harry's. This was let me see if I got it for you guys. Yeah, this is. And I'll need to do clear plus, clear. Where's my plus? There it is. Where is my plus? Ooh. See if that helped any. Clear plus. Ooh, well, that did something bad, I suppose. So I'll just work it up here. Let's just do that and be happy. There we go. We look at 96% of the top, and it goes down to here. We're looking at this study, and the first thing I noticed in this study was Harry's masculinity report. This is the one that's always that's coming up lately, and it's for American men. Masculinity report, a U.S. study at Harry's partnership in the University of London. London was done in 2018 by people in London. So they had 5,000 males. So I know this is the study that's being most used. Positive mindset. They're gauging this on positive mindset index. Positive mindset index. So that would be a positive mindset. When you look up positive mindset, that's very much someone else's idea of what a positive mindset is. And a positive mindset is different than being happy. Positive mindset is I'm well oriented. I have a positive goal orientations. I go to work and it says happiness, confidence, sense of being in control, stability, and optimism is the PMI, which is measured in these things. And there's some cross analysis with and hardworking. This is what bothers me. The American values most inspired today is heroism, father figures, respectful co-worker, and respectful co-workers, mentor. Yeah, that could, if you're working with respectful, it sucks when people don't respect you. Loving families, social consciousness, and men and women in America. So they include women somehow in the study of men in America. And we're going to go down to these key things. And these key things are pretty much echo what was said already. Positive mindset, strong, blah, 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 and health. The third driver is income. Income makes men happy. Yeah, money makes men happy. The ability to do things that you want to do because you have money. I think they should delve deeper into these things and delve deeper into them. The ability to have money and do the things that you want to do. Yes. But that's terms of sexual orientation, homosexual, and 11% sample was included in sexual orientation for this study. So, but what surprised me is positive mindset. Here it is right here for you to look at. Job satisfaction was the top at 23%. It measured out at 23 on the positive mindset percentage. Health was next. Now they put a lot of incentive on health in the first article I was reading, like it was almost that's what they wanted out of you, not rather than what you wanted. Most men will say job satisfaction makes me happy. If I'm doing a job, I'm satisfied. It's not killing me. That makes me happy. My health, well, yeah, that has a lot to do. It's a factor. Income is another factor. Age is another factor. Now, fifth on this big thing, less than 4, it gets less than 4 is being married. Sports and leisure is even less than that, and military service comes down even less. So the top 3 of them, the top 4 things is job satisfaction, health, income, and age. And being married is less important to men now. But if you read this article, relationships and being married and that, whether men feel in control, having an impact in their relationship and stuff like that. And people are cherry picking one of the things that is the least popular thing of men. So we don't even get a choice sometimes what makes us happy. And then we look at we look at the male, and these are what they're telling make you happy. And then the facts came back that being married really doesn't make men happy. It makes men miserable. And what really makes men happy is working at something that they like to do and making money at it. Health, income, and age has a big impact on that. If you're older, of course, your general amount of happiness is going to go with your knees. Men age like fine wines, men and stable. This looks like a third grader made this thing, but this is the friendships is important. Now, friendships is important. Nowhere in this thing anybody said that men having good friends or having friends that consider your well-being. And then they include sports in that, having friends that play sports and socializing, healthy, going fishing, stuff like that. Yeah, that's important to men. On the general index of happiness, but military service didn't even ethnicity. What the hell does ethnicity have to do with the measurement of happiness or the PMI and men? Political languages and some of these things are really. Some of these people are really, but this is what they're quoting now, and they pretty much told you what's gonna make you happy. But we're back on. Now let me put these things down and stop the screen share here. And we'll go back up here and we'll do this because I might have a few things to say about this. I might have a few things to say about this. What really makes you happy? What really makes men happy all in all? And I think it's I think a job satisfaction if you're at a working age and not being in pain at work and connected with natural environment is spiritual and invigorating. Yeah, natural environments is spiritual and invigorating. Hello, Steve Hoka Rock and Roll. Hello, Prune Juice. Not a lot of people in today. I know it's early on a Friday night, and I know never to do a video on Friday because everybody's out to dinner right now, and or everybody's. But I just got home from my personal dinner on Friday, so I figured I scheduled it too for this hour. I don't know. I did that. I scheduled early. I hate when I schedule things early because sometimes I change my mind about the topics I want to do while I'm out. but I did it again today. So what does make you happy? I think being around the guys makes me happy. Out with the buds and the pals and doing manly stuff and punching each other in the shoulder and calling each other gay makes me happy. Hey, that makes me happy. What's up, Silence? What's up, Silence Age? So when we look at the general happiness of the males in society, most males are pretty happy. Job satisfaction is pretty important to them. Doing what you want to do is in life is pretty important, and having someone nag on you all the time. What I see a lot of is men generally. They don't want to be nagged at work. And the biggest complaints I hear over and over and over at the bar or any men I talk to is being nagged at work. It's a lot like being married, which, by the way, if you weren't here and you weren't listening, was the 5th thing on that list. And it was probably the lowest thing on that list. Job satisfaction, I can't say certain words today. Job satisfaction, was the highest thing, and there was other things on that list that were more important than being married. And a matter of fact, I think if they really, really did a study, they would find that being married probably all in all adds to unhappiness more. Them things at the bottom of the list, being in the military, not too many. There seems to be a problem with that, and I think they screwed up there. I was going to go into the from the top things to the bottom things. Being in the military, not going to make men really happy. Being married, not going to make the men real happy. What was that last thing? Sports and leisure. I think that was so. It was kind of flip flop from where it was going to be, but and there was some really odd stuff in there. And this is what they're telling us. It seemed another absurdity to me. And what they're telling us would make you happy is you work hard. You just work hard, and that'll make you happy. Work will set you free. On the sign of Auschwitz. That's what it said on Auschwitz. Work will set you free. We get saturated with that in our society. Everybody puts job happiness. Well, yeah, you're going to be unhappy if you're a slave. Yeah. And you're going to be the happiest if you've ever been a slave and had to move up, and then you're the slave master. I mean, that's going to make you freaking shitload of happiness once you get out of that position, out of the being the slave, and you move up to being the master. Yeah. So you can see how them surveys kind of work, and they don't really think about overall happiness, which is linked back to suicide rates in men. And that's what we were talking about, a life worth living. What is a life worth living? What would a life worth living be to you and me? I don't know, going fishing, falling asleep on a 68-degree day, maybe 72, 73 degrees, next to the lake with my pole between my toes, and just kind of, yeah, that was solitude, perfect solitude. Solitude always makes me happy, but solitude in itself is a lack of being irritated, isn't it? And that's like that job satisfaction thing, a lack of being yelled at. So when it comes to men, overall, they often depend on a lack of things that are done to them. Like in that work position, a lack of being a slave. You're going to be happiest at your job if your job doesn't resemble the slave mentality. And if you got the lack of being a slave, depends on your happiness. And that's how they measure male happiness. You don't have to be a slave. In Mgtow, you don't have to be a slave at all. You can free your mind and don't ever let people treat you like that. And the lack of being yelled at by some shithole boss. Yeah, that's a lack of something that's negative, a lack of a negative thing happening to you. That's like, I'm not going to be happy if every day I walk out of the house and like a small dog runs up and bites me on the leg. And that's my reality. You know, a small dog. Every day I walk up and a small dog runs up and bites me on my leg, or I get chased by a dog on my bike. The lack of that happening, and someone going, you know, Joe, the lack of that happening would make you happy. And I'd go, shit, yeah, that would make me happy, but that makes no sense. That's more of the absurd. My buddy used to say to me all the time, we used to not say this all the time. He said it once really harshly to me. He said, Joe, you know what? Yeah, he was watching me do something in life and in my marriage and everything. He says, Joe, you're just going to feel so much happier as soon as you stop stabbing yourself in the forehead with that fucking fork. Just think how happy you're going to be after you stop doing that. And that's he was talking about the lack of like that small dog running up and biting to the lack of something, the lack of being yelled at will make men happy. This is how male happiness is measured. The lack of bad things happening to you. Now, shouldn't male happiness be solitude, the measurement of solitude, a gentle balance between solitude, getting out, leisure, and freedom, rather than the lack of something bad happening to you? Because if the measurement of happiness is the lack of something bad happening on a daily basis constantly, is the measurement of happiness, then we're all fucking screwed. And that's why we can't answer this question of male suicide. Because we live in a society that absolutely, honestly, is absurd and thinks that way. Jesus Christ. And I know I took a long time around to get there, but sometimes these thought processes take a little while. So I think we have to reevaluate on men what really makes us happy, what really what makes us joy, gives us joy in our lives. And I think it's simple things. Men aren't too complex, and it's not the lack of something. So anytime that you hear someone discussing this, job satisfaction is the lack of an asshole yelling at you. And that's not a good measurement of happiness. uh, sports and leisure, maybe making that awesome catch, dunking the ball, which I was never able to do in my life. I think I got close to dunking the ball once. But yeah, making those big time shots, catching a fair sized fish, and thinking, man, is that going to taste good later? Uh, Angling, hunting, bowling. None of those things are the lack of someone yelling at me. None of those things are the lack of a boss's input on my life. None of those things lack physical pain. It's like, Joe, you want to go bowling, but we got to strap these bowling balls to your leg, and you got to hurt. And then you can really enjoy this if we would untie those bowling balls from your leg. But hey, that might happen and it might not happen. That's stupid. And then you measure if someone likes bowling from the lack of being unbound. That's ridiculous. But that's the absurd world we live in. And that's a lot to do with marriage, too. A perfect marriage, in most men's eyes, which really rates 5 on the level of what makes them happy, a perfect marriage would be a lack of being yelled at all the time. A perfect marriage would be a lack of pain in that. A perfect marriage would be a lack of suffering in that. And that's a stupid thing to measure these things on. Why can't there? I look at this once in a while, and I look at people that don't do those things, and I would simply say there's a lack of those things. It doesn't matter. But what's the fulfilling part of that? Loyalty. Human did a very good video on loyalty, and I had some interesting thoughts about loyalty on that. Loyalty is a very having a partner that was loyal to you would be, I think that would 50% of the men in the world would lack on happiness right now if they had a partner that was actually loyal, or if women understood loyalty. If women actually understood loyalty. But what is that thing in loyalty that makes us happy? What is what is loyalty? It's hard to tell sometimes. It's very hard to tell sometimes. And I don't really think women understand the lack of loyalty is actually a good topic for men. Let me go here and see how I articulated this. A lack of loyalty actually is a good topic when you talk about how we as MRAs talk about these things. It's the positive from the negative claim is what we're talking about. We're trying to make a positive from a negative claim of we're saying you it's like those little kids. You bitches ain't loyal. I love that video, and it's just an observation of mine that women struggle with loyalty, and they know it. And our appeal becomes the antithesis of their bad behavior, and it actually forces them to take note and notice the negation. And when I talk and how absurd it is when they are unloyal. And stuff so loyalty makes men happy, honorability, and I think a lot of times being honorable makes men happy. But being honorable would count for it would account that someone is honorable to you too, and honor is loyalty a lot of times, and I think women don't understand loyalty, but that would cover most 50% of what would make men happy is a little bit of freaking loyalty, and they never cover these and basically I would say that 70% of men that actually do commit suicide, and I can probably judge that just on I would have to do the research on it and get the actual stats, come out of a relationship that was bad where loyalty was breached. And anytime a relationship ends suddenly for a man, there's some amount of loyalty that they're going to assume was there was a breach of that loyalty. And I think it was more than 100%, more than 100% men that are unhappy. We're talking about men that are unhappy. If I don't want to be with somebody and that ends, I'm not gonna argue about that. And that's probably most men today. They're not going to argue about a woman leaving them, because they're like, "Whew, got out of that one, Jesus." Because men see the risk in it today. And if you're moving on to that period of the Nawalt period. And then the Nawalt period is perfect, because she's displaying loyalty. She's displaying characteristics that are above her. She's displaying beauty. She's displaying all those things. And you get the good period until you find out there are no waltz. And then she pulls the mask off. And then all those things like, on loyalty and looking at her in the morning, and she puts on 60 pounds, and those things all pop back up in your life. And then that's when you want to leave. But but loyalty and honor, honorability is important for men. And with male suicide, I think them are factors that go into it. But I'd go back and I'll digress to what would make all suicide go away. What would make all suicide go away is making life worth living. And that doesn't seem to be, that's a fortune cookie answer that just so happens to probably be true about a very complex subject. Just make life worth living. How do you make life worth living? Well, us Mgtows, we talk about that all the time. What makes you happy? Whiskey, talks fishing, hunting, being not abused at work, being not abused. These things are the things that I start thinking about when I start thinking about, fishing and luxury and money, and all those things are great and everything. But when men start saying not being abused at work, not being made such a slave of, that's a lack of something. That's a lack of just casual cruelty from others into your life. And I talked a lot about casual cruelty, why it's so important. Dershkin automatically hooked casual cruelty with Schweitzer, with suicide. That was Schweitzer's idea. Casual cruelty and suicide have a lot to do with each other. Because if it's removed, then it's a lack of something. You say, "Oh, I'll go to work every day and it'll be fine as long as people aren't fucking with me all the time." And that's great. But it calls for, why can't we have that lack of that negative thing coming in my life all the time that makes me miserable? Why do I have to beg for that? Why do I have to achieve that? Why is it that you have to achieve that at your job? That's what I was. There's levels of achieving, non-slavery at work, and then that's when it starts. I have to go into deeper issues. The lack of a woman yelling at me all the time would make me happy. It would increase my PMI. It's like, that's a ridiculous thing. The lack of being fucked with on the way to work with traffic lights and stupid people. And yeah, that's stress. If I had a lack of stress in my life, but then I asked, it was the question I asked a while ago. It's like, there was a study that was done in Prager University, uses it all the time, and I think it's the stupidest thing. And it's one of these things that I was talking about today in these studies. They said men that are married and get sex all the time reduce stress, and they said it reduces stress in these men, and then they're be able to achieve going to work and function normally. And I says, but why was there the stress? Because they were married. And that's what we're talking about here. The lack of something is why you're abusing your partner's V at night, and you think that she's a penis pocket. And it started. These things get all so silly for me when they ask it. If there wasn't that stress in your life, you wouldn't need that stress remover that just so happens to be just so happens to be something that really you probably shouldn't be doing on a nightly basis. If you're coming home and smashing that every night because you're stressed, you might want to go see a psychiatrist rather than that. But Prager University thinks that's a good idea. But they're Christians, and the Christian suffering thing, she's going to suffer through that. And then you can suffer through work or whatever's causing stress. And whatever's causing that stress is probably her to begin with. And then men put that on the fourth level. That's the fifth level. Being married is the fifth level, and nobody wants to talk about having kids. Having kids is a joy, and makes for kid is playing with the kids, taking them out, playing baseball games. That's energy. That's stress relieving activity that men actually want to do anyways. They want to go play some baseball, take the kids fishing, and everything. And those are the good things in life. But they want to make that into the lack of stress situation too, or the lack of situation. Yeah, it's great if you have a lack of child support. And then if that lack of child support, your happiness will rise on the PMI index if you have a lack of that. Or if you just get 2 jobs, which would be on the top one. And then you have to work on that lack of slavery position. Do you see what this is going to? Jesus, no wonder men commit suicide. They look and they wake up one day and they look around with the look of horror in their eyes and go, life ain't worth living. This shit's fucking absurd. And most men will go through that moment at some point in their life. It's like, they've been telling me all my life, it's this, this, and this. And I'm finding out that all I really wanted to do was go fishing or dig a garden in my backyard. And those are the things I'm working for anyways, when you think about it. I build my house. That would make me happy. Building a house makes men happy. Imagine that. Imagine that. Farming and gardening makes men happy, and providing fish and meat on a table makes men happy. Imagine that. Shelter, food, and what else do you need after that? These basic things in life that cavemen did without having someone regulate them makes men happy. You got men going to work so their boss can, it's like the crackheads would say, your boss is chipping you off a little piece of that. And then he's holding you hostage in a slavery program so you can get what you were supposed to get anyways. Naturally, you're supposed to build your house. Yes, you're supposed to build your house. You're supposed to go fishing so you can eat. You're supposed to breathe too. Pretty soon they can sell you air. And obviously when you get old, maybe they will. But the things that make men most happy are the things that have been hijacked from us. And they're not the lack of someone beating you. Of course, if you're being beaten every day and whipped every day as a slave would, happiness to you would be not being beaten that much. But that's absurdity. Or just being a house slave like Uncle Tom was made Uncle Tom happy. But the absurdity in this, if Uncle Tom was free, maybe that would have made him happy. If most Americans and most men were free, maybe that would have made them happy to begin with, and maybe suicide wouldn't be such a matter. So a life worth living is what? It's not the lack of being beaten. It's the natural things in life that were naturally supposed to happen that were hijacked by society. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting somewhere. Just trying to quickly go down the messages and say hello to everyone. Hello, Forrest. Hello, Steve. Hello, Taryn. Yeah, it's the absurdity in life that men notice that make them the most unhappiness. And that's what Camus was talking about with suicide and Sisyphus. That's what Camus was talking about. And I think that's what, to the most part, Durkheim was trying to measure scales of what was the thing. There was five sorts of things. There was, noble suicides and altruistic suicides, and on the PMI level, the bar was too low or expectations were too high. Expectations being too high can lead to suicide, and expectations being too low can lead to suicide. You have to have that happy middle distance. But I think we answer a more crucial question in society. When you're living in an artificial society, in your life's impulses and what makes men happy, building a house, farming, you see Vention farming all the time. He loves it. I love farming. I do it in my backyard when I can, although I have a very small backyard. When I do it, it makes me feel good. It makes me happy. If I would have built my house, it would have made me happy. It would have been an achievement. It's like painting that wall thing. After I'm done, I would have looked up at this beautiful thing that I made. That makes me happy. It's the male spirit. But all that gets hijacked. And then farming becomes a product of we got to feed everybody. And now that we have to feed everybody, it becomes a job. And who gets to do the job? 20% of the lower scale males get to do that job, and you can work your way up. So working your way up on these jobs becomes a lack of slavery. Which is just lunacy. And this is a society we live in, and we're wondering why men capped ourselves at records now. But there is a program called Mgtow out here where we start looking at these things honestly. Marriage doesn't make me happy. A matter of fact, marriage makes me miserable. Kids make me happy, but having to pay for kids, the lack of someone holding a gun to me and saying they're going to put me in jail makes me happy. And that would be what I was supposed to have to begin with, the ability to raise my children. Without the government, imagine this in a natural situation, in a natural setting. In a natural setting, the female would come to a man and say, I'm very unhappy and I'm going to take the kids and run off with John down the street. And you would just clock her and say, go run off with John and I'm keeping the kids because they're going to be protected here. So most of what makes men unhappy, we can see generally is society's wishes upon us, and these things, these lack of things, lack of pain in our lives. Lack of getting yelled at is always great, which would equate to solitude. And then they ask me, Joe, why do you like your solitude? Because it's a lack of all that garbage. It's a lack of all the garbage in life. Oh, man. Oh, man. People got this whole thing all screwed up. We've screwed up so bad, our planet. We've screwed up so bad as people. And if there was a God, he's just sitting back eating his God popcorn and laughing at our stupid asses. And people wonder why I say humans are seriously flawed and why I should be king. I know, not just because of my pleasant, beautiful looks. So that's why I wanted to cover male suicide today. I wanted to cover what makes you happy, what makes men happy, why Mgtows do what they do, and it's for a general pursuit of that natural happiness. Natural happiness resembles a job, building a house, clearing a field, farming. Them are all things you would have to do in a natural situation. in a farming herding situation that we used to have, you would get some cows, you would collect some chickens, and then you get some eggs from them, and you get to eat one of them once in a while. And you get some cheese, and you make this, and you farm, and you get some vegetables, and that's a lot of work, but that's the kind of work that's reward oriented work. It's like painting that wall and looking at it and saying, I did a very nice job, and I'm visually and rewarded from the work that I did. Making your house nice is reward oriented. Building a house is reward oriented. Going fishing makes me happy. Well, that's just another reward oriented thing that I would have done naturally in a natural society, not an artificial society. We wonder why men going fishing makes them happy. Hunting makes them happy. In a reward oriented society, you would do these things naturally. Now we think about the sexual thing, and we think about females and loyalty and lack of loyalty, and what would be a reward oriented thing. What would be the honorable thing for me to do in those situations? In the natural wild, you would just kind of look at one, you'd run up on it, hit it, like that little chipmunk, and then probably just walk away and say, I'm going playing with the dudes, we're going hunting. That's a natural situation. What's unnatural about these situations is moving in a filthy cave with her where she doesn't throw out the garbage and yells at you all the time, because that becomes the lack of something that would make you happy. It would really make me happy if she would stop yapping all the time and yelling at me all the time. But that's the lack of yelling at, being yelled at. And that should not be the measurement of men's happiness. Because if that's the measure of men's happiness, we're below that mark, the red line. We're already below the red line. We're already ready to explode. Hello, Mgtow Thread. Hello, Chevy Olds. That's funny, Chevy Olds. I bet I never really thought about that, but I don't want to think about that. Grow up. If you could do that, please. Carly's right back on that. You guys are funny. Hello, Silent Sage. Hello, Taryn again, and Mgtow Thread. Hello, everybody that's in the podcast. But what is it that we're talking about? Male suicide today, and we're talking about a lot of factors involved with that, and the absurd world that we live in, and the absurd things that we have to take from people. Casual cruelty is one of the things, which just happened right here between Chevy Olds and Carly. That was a certain amount of casual cruelty towards others, and that's one of my things in life now that I try not to do. And if I offend you in any way, I'll apologize for it. But casual cruelty is being yelled at all the time in a marriage. When your spouse or lover or whatever yells and they demand, and that's a special amount of casual cruelty that you're supposed to take. And if that submits and it goes to happy wife, happy life stuff, as soon as that level of casual cruelty decreases, your happiness goes up higher, and that's a threat, isn't it? It's like, and she says, well, I'll keep it up here, and then like you'll have to buy me something, and then your happiness goes up because happy wife, happy life is a threat. But we can see the measurement of the lack of pain and casual cruelty in your life as a male, and we wonder why we don't want to be in these situations. Oh man, I would never stay anywhere where somebody was being casually cruel to me. As a matter of fact, I would make it stop. That's with the boss. That's with a woman. That's with another person in general. If I go to the convenience store, or if I walk outside of the house and the dog's nipping at my tails every day, and at my leg and wanting to try to hump on my leg, I make it stop because that would increase my happiness. And Mgtow is just a simple way of making these things stop, which has a lot to do with the third or fourth thing on it, health and mental healthness, mental health, sports and leisure, mental health, and all these things go together. Of course, we're going to have unhealthy men, unhealthy blue pen, most of them, because I've never seen a Mgtow that was unhappy. We're going to have unhealthy, we're going to have unmentally balanced blue pill men because, like I said, the level which they inspire to is the level that should have been to begin with. It should have been there to begin with. You should not be trying to remove pain from your life. And if you're trying to remove pain from your life, you got to ask where that pain coming from. Where's that pain coming from? And if it's coming from somewhere, you have to remove it. And we did as Mgtows, but that should be the level right there of your happiness. But in this society, when we measure these things as shown, if you haven't seen the beginning of the video, as shown, there was a 5,000 men in London. I don't know if that was London, England, or London, Ohio. I can't tell. They didn't say. So it's in London. I'm sure every state has a London in it. But the measure of happiness and was the predetermining factor was the lack of something. It was always the lack of pain or the lack of slavery. And that's what Health and Human Service is telling most men, in those child situations or childbearing situations, we'll give you a lack of pain if you give us money. And that's more happy. They figured out happy wife, happy life. Now they're happy Uncle Sam, happy life. And you just changed partners at that point. Now you got the devil right in your back, and the lack of the devil pounding on your head would make you happy. That comes from Tom Sawyer, I think it was, when John had to, I think his name was John, the crazy guy that lived out in the woods, had to carry the devil across the swamp on his back. There's a lot of metaphysics in there. You have to untangle that metaphysics. And what Tom was looking for was happiness. So you can see where I'm going with that analogy. Oh, and then there's the other guy that got the poison ivy. That was sort of, I don't know what that was all about. Happy wife, wasted wife. You get damn right about that, prune juice power, PJP. I'm trying to get these show. Do not deal with dicks. Yeah, don't deal with dicks in your life. If someone's being a dick, remove that out of your life. You shouldn't have to deal with dicks in your life. Bosses are dicks. You know how many jobs I went through when I first got out of the Army, and it was like, got out here in society, and I ran through. I could look at my social security report. I'm having troubles with my S's today for some reason. I don't know why, but my social security report, I wanted to make sure everything was tidy in it, so I ordered it, and I was looking at, it's like, hey, look at all those jobs I went through when I was out. I went through like 22 jobs in 2 years and 3 years. I just wasn't happy with, and that's in most of it. When I think about it, most of my decisions in life to leave a job was some dick boss or people that I didn't want to be around, or there was lazy people, or there was just people that just made me generally unhappy, and I shouldn't have to put up with that. And that's the inputs that you get. Life is like being a PLC as a man. You get inputs and you put out output. You put out output signals, and you take in the input, you direct it. And one of the inputs you don't want to be directing is bad electricity and bad vibrations and bad input to your life, and bad bosses Man, there's a lot of bad bosses, and that's just a matter of on the way out, me and my buddy used to work together a lot, or I'd get a buddy and everything. We always used to kind of run through these jobs together. We'd always get these dual jobs and everything, and together, because we like working together. And we'd look at each other at a certain point, and we're going to say, we'd do, oh, we're going to make him pay until he understands that he can't treat people like that. And we did on most of the jobs on the way out, make him pay. But until that happens, until a little bit of unhappiness visits their life, they don't understand how they're making other people unhappy. And happiness at work should not really depend on a lack of someone doing something bad to you. Yeah, asshole bosses should get the pimp hand. But you're not allowed to do that in society because we have no unions anymore, and our Republican Congress, whatever states, tells us we're not allowed to make those decisions anymore for ourselves. You backhand your boss, and you're going to go to jail, and he may deserve it because he's doing a very cruel and you ever think about the acts that they do in there? They're very cruel and very abusive. You mean you need to stop cruel and abusive acts towards you, but our government in itself says, no, you got to take those abusive acts, and then your happiness will depend on the lack of abusive acts done to you. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, and the people in Congress and in the state houses should be shot if they even say that. I provide finding a good example of others' misfortune for being cruel. A recent study showed most men find satisfaction in manufacturing-related activities and strategies. Yeah, building something. It's natural for a man to build his house. It's natural for a man to want to agriculturally want to put in a garden so he can eat. It's natural for a man to collect hay. It's natural for a man to raise animals. It's natural for a man in a natural environment. These things, that's what I was saying earlier, Forrest. In a natural environment, you have to think about what a man does. He's this machine that survives in a very cruel world. So it's natural to fish, and that makes men happy. It's natural to build, and that makes happy. Building your house makes you happy. That's just building a structure, engineering, stuff like that. We understand it very good because we would naturally do that. Farming, you get out there, you get that plow going, you put some seeds in, you watch them grow, you do a good job. That's a reward-oriented thing. You get to eat. It keeps you alive. It makes you happy. And for millions and millions of years, men have been doing that. Now society has gently taken over all those roles. And then we look at what are the male roles? You go to work so some boss can be a dick to you, and then you measure your happiness on a level of how little or how much dickness he does to you. Well, that's fucking absurd. So you can get the same things you were supposed to have from the beginning. Society is absurd. It's not made for men. But on this planet where it's overpopulated and everybody's like doing it like bunnies and thinking popping out kids because you got a bunch of slaves down at the farm that will supply that food up there at a low cost. Well, yeah, we get a very warped society then. You know what the biggest increase in human population was? It was from the Haber-Bosch invention of ammonium nitrate fertilizer. Now we can feed everybody. Boom goes the population, and they wonder why. But now we're dependent on the fertilizer. We're dependent. If the fertilizer stops fertilizing and nitrogen stops being nitrogen, these are one of the basic laws in the universe. If nitrogen stops being nitrogen, we all die. Basic and simple. Did you know that 45% of the human body right now consists of artificial nitrogen? That's scary. We wonder about depression. We wonder about male happiness. We wonder about these artificial things in society. And we look at our very bodies. We look at our very bodies, and 45% of the nitrogen that holds your body up, the carbons that build and hold your body together, or else you'd fall apart and be a blob of mushiness on the floor without them, is artificial nitrogens that are made in factories now. Through the Haber-Bosch invention of making ammonium nitrate, which was originally made so they can shoot bullets at each other. Yeah, that's the sad part. Yeah, that's sad. The Haber-Bosch, if you reverse the last portion and then reintroduce the nitrogen back into the in the back of the ammonium that comes out, and you reintroduce it, you get gunpowder. Weird. Yeah, weird. So we're talking about male happiness. We're talking about suicide. What will drive a man to suicide? Yeah, a lot of those situations that we covered today, living in this world in a very irrational, illogical, absurd world that we live in, puts men at risk. Getting back to nature. I think if psychologists and psychiatrists and sociologists wanted to raise male happiness, they would raise natural environments. They would put men back in natural environments, or at least highly depressed men back in natural environments. And maybe if they do grow a farm, or they do catch an excess amount of fish, and they choose to share it with society, then they can do that. And then now we talk about wealth and distribution and how to get that and everything. You could sell your excesses back. I did a thing one day. It was, oh God, years and years and years ago in college or something. We took we took men's toils, and we on the farm, and what would be the size of a farm needed to his toils, and the overage amount that could he can sell to society, what would be needed for all those things to happen, and how much he needs to sell to society, because we have portions of our city dwelling society that can't do those things. We figured all those things out. I might pull that out. I have it around here somewhere, and do a video on that someday, because I think it's important to male happiness. Ketchup. What are you putting ketchup on, Mgtow thread? That was kind of weird. But that's all I wanted to talk about today. And we think about male suicide. So if you have a friend, if you have a friend that's going through depression in his life, probably the best thing that you could do for him is go over his house with a shovel and start digging a garden, or take him fishing or hunting, getting back to nature, about giving him back a little bit of what he should have in his life. Be that hunter again, feel like a man. Nothing like being a hunter again and feeling like a man, when most men in this society don't feel like men anymore. They don't feel needed. They don't feel like only way they get validation is from their toils at work for somebody else in a slavery position. That's no good. No good at all. I envy other societies that still have farming cultures, that societies like Cuba that everybody inputs a little bit, and the excesses go to anything excess then would go to the state, so they can distribute it to the people that can't. Farming cultures like that, there's probably, I would say, I don't know, I'd have to check, the suicide rate in some of those places would go down. Now you can see failure, and you can start measuring these things through Durkheim's if expectations are too hard or expectations are too low, or you feel that there's noble and moralistic suicide and stuff like that. Yeah, we can start measuring them in that way. But as long as things are as absurd as it is, I think we get our measurements and our methodology all screwed up. And that's the big question with philosophy today. It's probably the only question that philosophy can't answer. And I worry about these things. Your methodology is all screwed up. Your ideas are all screwed up. What I really want to do is get back to what I'm supposed to be. And that's all I wanted to talk about, guys. I hope you've enjoyed my ranting and rambling. And I hope I provided something for food for thought on some of these issues. And I'm going to go out, probably lay my fat ass down in my fat ass couch now that I'm trying to, because I no longer have a fat ass lazy boy, since I didn't buy a lazy boy yet because I'm lazy. And I have to do that one of these days. Because a lot of my happiness is derived from the lazy boy. So I'm going to let you guys go. And most of all, hey, Mgtow serves a very big purpose in this thing, and reaching out to other men and bringing them in and just explaining some of this stuff to them is your job, each and every one of your job, in whatever minute way you choose to do that. And it's up to you. No one's gonna tie you to a whipping post to proselyte Mgtow out there. Whatever you choose to do, if you just choose to be a part of, then that's helpful, because being a part of this thing gives that social aspect of life that a lot of people are missing nowadays. And you can reach out with friends all over the world, which is just cool. And just being a part of Mgtow is just a cool thing. And that provides one thing that's probably makes men a little less anxious. It probably makes men a little less worrisome in this society of absurdity. It's the society of the absurd and the theater of the absurd. So you're doing your little part, and thank you for that, each and one of you. Just like I always say, thanks for being a Mgtow. Mgtow. You guys take care.